Hello, welcome back to another episode of Unscripted. We have decided our theme for today is going to be communication, and we're not going to just mention the obvious, the voices of the throat, whether it's defined or not. We're going to bring in some other elements from the chart as a whole that can impact our communication through the lens of human design. And we were preparing to come on, and Sarah started showing me her journal. You may have watched that already. And I quickly was like, why are you just telling me this? We should record this and then everyone can see your description of it. And after we started talking about like, well, how come you've not talked about it? And then we went through this whole thing of looking at your chart, my chart, and we've come up with this whole explanation
This
from
is
looking at
amazing.
it. And we're like, it's perfect for a communication conversation.
But that's it because communication is so much more than just the throat center. Um, it's how we express ourselves. And I mean, okay, I don't have a defined throat. I do have some gates activated in it, so it doesn't mean I can't communicate. And I think that's really important to say. It's not whether you've got a defined or an undefined throat that is an issue. It's not an issue. It just changes the way that we communicate. So if you've watched the Success Codex episode, Katie, you went through like literally what I am here to do is to like live through experience and share that knowledge and wisdom and stuff like that. And I'm really good at learning the experiences and figuring out and solving problems so that other people don't have the same issues and things like that. I'm not so great at the sharing, hence the journal conversation.
Yes. So we there's lots of different reasons, and it's not all down to human design. Obviously, there's lived experience, but we did just do a little dive into the channel 1648
Yeah.
because Sarah mentioned, oh mate, I said, why do you think it is that you're not sharing about your journal? She's like, oh, maybe it's my gate 48. And then we realized that with human design um each gate has an opposite, and together they form a channel, and the energetic kind of the energy then works as a partnership and it kind of forms a thing. And do you
It's
want to
described it
read?
as like closing a loop, like it completes. It's like a complete
Yeah.
circuit.
So do you want to read the description of what happens when you have gate 48 without the 16? Because I have the 16 and Sarah has, well, I have 16 and 48.
You have the whole channel.
I have the whole channel. Sarah just has 48. So do you want to read that description? Because we did laugh.
Yeah, so gate 48, just for reference, is in the splenic center, which we know is the fear center. So all of those gates in that little splenic center have different energetic themes around fear. And I'm very familiar with my gate 48 because it's got the shadow aspect of inadequacy. So it's like not enough, not good enough, not knowledgeable enough, not accurate enough, like whatever. So what it says, Gate 48, these people have the potential to come up with solutions for new solutions for things. Um, without the presence of the 16th gate, though, 48s have no clear way of recognizing their depth and thus no ability or skills to apply it to the world. This is why this is the gate of inadequacy. The fear of this gate is twofold, that their wisdom may never emerge when it's called upon, and that they may not possess the skills to express this depth in the first place. It's a projected channel, so if these people wait for others to initiate and recognize their depth, it will emerge clearly and correctly.
Which is what just happened.
Yeah.
I invited you. I activated the 16 and I asked you to come along and talk about it. And there it was. But I mean, some of the wording, and we've talked about this before, if you are new to human design and you are not holding the if you're not in the right mindset and you're not holding that everything is just potentials and information and it's not concrete, that's quite a harsh line that was in there because I read it out to you first, didn't I? And I was like, that's harsh because it says, um, without gate 16, you have no ability to apply it to the world.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are new to human design and you're reading
Take it
this,
literally. Yeah.
you'd be like, oh my God, okay then. So I can't do anything.
Yeah. Which we know is not true because also, I mean, there's more depth in this. It says people with a 48 in their design are sitting on a fount of natural wisdom waiting for the right moment to be shared. Now, my VA will tell you this, by the way, and I was saying to Katie, I had to voice note her very quickly before I came on here. I have so much content and things that I've written and created, workshops that I've recorded. It's unreal, but I don't always feel, I don't, it takes me a while to share things. So I have my own podcast as well as what we do together. And I know that we recorded an episode a year ago
Mhm.
and I haven't shared it yet. And part of that is maybe I'm waiting for the right time. So I've recently shared some episodes that, again, I recorded a year ago. And part of me, sometimes maybe I wait too long and I think, oh, the moment's passed. So therefore, I don't want to share it. But what I've been doing recently is just going, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to put it out there. It feels like a good time to put it out there now. And I've had some really positive feedback from it. I've had a couple of emails from people saying like, oh, this episode really resonated with me and stuff like that. And it's like, okay. And it's just looking for those reminders, not letting my gate 48 overshadow everything, and actively seeking the feedback, the evidence that what I have to share is valuable, what I have to share is insightful, it is interesting, and not to get stuck in my own head.
Hmm. And I think we talked about, again, if you've watched the Success Codex one, we talked about your leadership, having that line 5 with the trusting of the timing, which is exactly what you kind of just said. And so with when you have a whole channel, the energy, and then if something within your chart has a channel up to the throat, it means there is a direct path for the energy to get out of your system and to be voiced and to come out. Now, most of my channels are connected to get my energy directly out through my throat. But what it means potentially with your chart is it is even more about the time. It's all sitting there ready to go, and
Mm.
the right person will come along, either
Yeah,
your VA, who you have actively gone and sought. You mentioned earlier when we were off before we were recording that a lot of what she's there for, or it's accountability.
yeah,
Because she reminds you, she prompts you, she brings things out. So you've actively kind of consciously, unconsciously, and whichever thing caused it, you've seen that to get some of that energy out, maybe you have
yeah,
somebody else come and help you.
yeah,
I today have activated it with my gate 16, my gate of enthusiasm. So I'm designed to talk about anything that I'm enthusiastic about. Sarah started talking to me about her journal. I got all excited about it. So I'm kind of like, then doing that timing and that drawing, that making that connection for you. But we both potentially communicate in a very different way,
yeah,
but they're not right or wrong. And there is this trust in the timing, in that your depth is all there ready, but it's maybe more of a timing and a discernment piece around it. Whereas mine, I might share more often,
yes,
but that doesn't make one better, worse, different than the other.
no. And that's the thing, like all of these gates, obviously we know that the throat center is the gate of communication, self-expression, right? But all of those gates add a different nuance to what kind of communication comes through more easily to you. So for me, 16 is not activated, so I don't have that complete channel, but I do have gate 12, which is like transformative messaging. I can say things that impact people but it can also be impulsive because if I say, and it's funny because I was aware of this as a kid, I think I got, and I think we've possibly spoken about this before. I got told, I've lost track of how many times I got told when I was a kid that I had an attitude problem because I kind of say it how it is. I I can I can call out bullshit quite easily, which is ironic because I don't like conflict, but I don't do it in a way to piss people off. I think it comes back down to my integrity. I'm like, well, playground, like school, secondary school, for example, I could never understand friendship groups. Why, you'd be stood with a group of friends and they're slagging off someone, and then this other person comes up and they're all nice to their face. I'm like, what is going on here? That's not cool. And that's an integrity thing for me. But also, if I called it out, then everybody would then turn on me.
I have seen that gate 12 called lots of different names. So I've seen it called the ultimate wordsmith because it's like always having this ability to have the right words and to be able to say, exactly what needs to be said. I've also seen it described as the gate of social caution.
Yeah. Like, and it definitely turned me into a pariah when I was a teenager.
And I view it very much as we have the different types in human design, and the projector as a type is known for that, having to be careful and the timing of their words. And I see that gate as like, that's like a mini projector
Yeah.
sitting in that gate. It can have the same impact, the same kind of like if the timing is off, you shoot the messenger. I always feel like Gate 12 has that same kind of energy vibe going on as a projector, which like it says the gate of social caution. Yes, it might be what needs to be said, but
Is it the right time? And that's definitely something that I've learned. So I had a lot of throat problems. I mean, it could be a coincidence. I had chronic tonsillitis between 15 and 17. Told you, I got told I got a big attitude problem. Coincidence? I don't know. And I used to get laryngitis a lot. But when I started reading more about the throat center, and I was like, oh, actually, and I grew up in a family of defined throats. My mum, my dad, and my brother all defined throats. Me, nothing. So trying to speak and like, I do think probably a lot of my throat problems with hindsight were as a result of me speaking out and trying to be heard, but obviously at the wrong time. And I
Mm.
think what I've learned through this process is like, okay, just because it needs to be said doesn't need to necessarily be said right now. And you don't have to speak. And it's not there's no desperation on my part anymore to feel heard.
Mm.
I can tune more into myself to go, okay, I don't feel the need to force myself to be heard right now. If people want to hear me, they might come to me, they might approach to me, and I yeah, it's more calling it out. The other thing that I've noticed, um, because I did question myself as to whether I could do or whether I was meant to do a podcast, my own podcast, which I really wanted to do. Um, and I've really enjoyed the process because what I've learned is, and I know we have different approaches to the podcast, which has been really fun because you like a bit more structure, you need to like have a theme, whereas I'm a bit more go with the flow. And I do think that's the difference in our communication styles and our energy. And I can wing it. That's one of the things that I have learned. I can meander and I can go with the flow. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's always a point and there's always a theme, as long as I'm aware of where I'm going and I can bring it back. Does that
I
make sense?
think it's a good combination. So yeah, so I have a defined throat with four gates activated. And once I started learning about it and I started reading it, it helped me to see why I don't communicate in certain ways. So I don't really. the gates that I have is the gate of details. It's like the scientific one, it's a 62, it's the scientist, it's, very clear, understandable language to explain things to people. And when I started reading it, it said something, it had this little phrase like, you might find these people say, does this make sense? And I pretty much end every every time I tell anyone anything, I end it with, does that make sense? Because the whole point is my throat wants to explain it to somebody so they understand. Um, so within that, there is a lot of structure because I'm trying to be very specific with my language and my words to make sure people understand. The 16 is the enthusiast. So the thing that I explain, the thing that I talk about, I'm usually really excited about. And that has gone off to my gate 48 to learn more, master it, and have the depth. My 33 is the storytelling one that's reflective.
I have
So
that
it's
one
an
too.
after, yeah, you've got that. So it's after the fact, like what have I learned from this? What is the lesson from this? It's like called the gate of remembering. And so I then have realized, I was like, I do kind of a lot of analogies and a lot of like
Mm.
part of that explanation comes with a 33 inspired
Yeah.
kind of story where it's the lesson has been learned to get the details. And then the gate that I didn't really resonate with, which was on my unconscious side, which you have, is the 31,
Mm.
which was the, what is it? The reluctant leader. So
Yeah.
it's the voice of the people, the kind of and when I started reading it, I was like, oh, do you know what? Like, I kind of, my whole life, I'm always put on the committee. I'm always like, people are always making me in charge of everything. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And they're like, no, you. And so when I really started looking at it, I was like, that is my voice. I can see those voices in myself. And I don't naturally tap into the other ones, the more emotional storytelling one. Like I tell a factual story, I don't tell an emotional story.
Hmm.
And I, like you with the criticize, I've not necessarily been criticized, but people have made comments about my lack of emotion, and stuff.
Mm.
But when I started looking at my human design, I was like, do you know what? No, this is right. And just lean into the things I have. And if I'm around other people or if I really try really hard, I might lean into some of the other gates. But I never really start a sentence with, I feel. I start a sentence with, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas what I always loved when I was learning about your undefined throat was this ability to match the situation, to
Yeah.
match the person you're, because I guess you mentioned you've got some of the gates defined in your throat. You've got the 12, 33, 31. Actually, your ability to drift into all those different ways of communicating means you can, whereas I will pretty much, no matter what circumstance I'm in, if it's an emotional one, I go to the fact
Yeah.
as I don't match the emotion.
Yeah.
But then I start to love, but that's clearly my strength, and that might be what that person needs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a need for every different type of communication, isn't it? This is why I think when you're a coach, FYI, I do think gate 31 is a perfect coach's gate, by the way.
Okay.
Um, if I read the description, it says, and it might be because of the planet that I've got activated by it as well, but it says you are influential and understand the patterns that affect others and know their needs and interests, which helps you to know how to direct them to their better future that you see for them so they can achieve their goals for themselves. I mean, you can't get a more accurate description of what a coach does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we're both in exactly the right role for that kind of communication, right? It's sort of guiding people towards their potential in a way that helps them. But I do think that's really interesting in terms of like the emotional connection, because I am defined emotionally. And I again, learning that sort of style of communication. When I first started coaching, I couldn't understand, and I do think it's more than just my emotional solar plexus at play here. I do think there's other aspects which we've talked about before. I couldn't understand why most of my clients cry during a session.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of them do. And sometimes it might be this, it makes it sound like if I say it out loud, people are like, oh my God, I don't want to go and have a coaching session with her. She's going to make me cry. I don't intend to. I don't go into sessions with that intention at all. But sometimes I have the ability to ask the question that unlocks a floodgate. And it might be something really simple. I'm not about traumatizing people. But for example, a wonderful client who has just come back to me actually. I worked with her last year, and we were talking about presence and her, how she feels really othered at the moment and like dismissed. She's not valued. And I just asked her a question, and I said, when was the last time you felt your voice had value? It's not a provocative question. It's quite a,
Well, it is
quite,
depending on the answer. That's the
wow.
difference, isn't it? If
Yeah.
you asked me that, I'd probably be like, oh, I don't know, probably yesterday when I was. But like you said, this ability, this gate 12, this ultimate knowing what to say and how to unlock that. So, and the gate 12 is on the emotional side.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and it
And
reaches out towards the emotional solar plexus.
yeah, and and that's what it did for this particular client, because she sat there for just a couple of minutes thinking, and then all of a sudden all this emotion came up because these memories came flooding back. And it was a time when it was a particular teacher that she had at secondary school. Oh, I've got goosebumps as I think about it now. It was such a beautiful realization and moment for her, where she kind of remembered that she is wise, she has knowledge, she has the right to be heard, she is valuable, and her voice is valuable. But she'd spent so long in this particular situation being squashed down and keeping herself small. So it was kind of trying to remember that for her. But it, like I said, it's, and because I now know that about myself, I no longer think I'm doing coaching wrong. I actually think, but
Well, it's again, it's that trusting piece. It's like
yeah,
people are energetically drawn to either of
yeah,
us, right? To you, to me. And they will be drawn to what they need, and that is what that person needed. Whereas I almost have people drawn to me. No, funnily enough, I don't really have clients drawn to me for this, but in my personal life, this has been a theme I now recognize. People are drawn to me when they are experiencing themselves a particularly emotional, turbulent, stressful time, in terms of their relationships breaking down or something happening. And people talk to me because of my lack of emotion,
yeah,
because I don't react, because I
yeah,
don't go, oh my God, or it's almost like a safe space for them to just be able to talk and there's no additional emotion. I'm not going to make them cry. Whereas another time, they might be in that state or that phase where actually what they need is to release it.
mm,
But I do get a lot of people talk to me and they will make a comment or something like, oh my God, I can't talk to my sister because she just,
that,
jumps on it and adds all this stuff, or I can't talk. So it's like, and I've been told over and over again, I don't react. And I'm like, okay.
yeah,
And so I used to, like I said, in the past, I've been criticized for my lack of a reaction, for my lack of stuff. Whereas actually, if we all hold true to what our gifts and think the right combination finds itself, and in the right time in the right combination, I'm completely emotionally neutral, and that's
yeah,
what they needed. And in another time, you are helping somebody to actually maybe release that
Yeah,
emotion, and
process
that
it.
is what
Yeah,
needed,
yeah,
all because of our different communication styles.
yeah. And that's it. There's a place for everything. Um, I actually mentor, supervise other coaches as well, and I've got a coaching client like you. So she's like, I don't do emotion. I don't want to do emotion. She's very kind of structured business coach. She has a very sort of set clientele. And one of the supervisor sessions, she was like, some of my clients are bringing emotional stuff with me, and I don't want it. I don't want to deal with it. So we had a supervision session around that. And it's like, she's like, am I broken? I'm like, no, you're not. But you're building up this deep level of trust with your clients. So you've created a safe space for them. And that's why they feel okay. I mean, she knows nothing about human design. She doesn't need to. She's not interested in it, which is fine. You don't have to be. But because I know what I know, I don't know what her chart is, but I know that obviously there's a place for her. And if she doesn't feel comfortable coaching emotional situations, then that's fine. It's not a problem. And it allows me to support her in the best way possible, because she can then bring that to me because I understand emotions. It's that I can hold space for the big emotions, and I'm not going to go, what the hell is this kind of thing. Um, so we've talked and kind of shared guidance, and she's like, what do I do if this happens? What do I do? How do I manage this? And we've talked a lot about how to manage those different situations. And I guess, I mean, the description says that when you've got a defined emotional center, you have consistent emotional intelligence, consistent emotional awareness.
Mm.
That doesn't mean if you're undefined, you don't have it. It just means that it's an evolving thing and you've got to learn through.
Well, when you have it undefined, you're more any uh undefined centers, you're absorbing things around you,
Yeah,
which by definition means it's inconsistent because you can't control
no,
what's happening. Whereas when you have the emotional authority and you have the defined emotional solar plexus, you have a consistent way of dealing with it for you, and you're mainly dealing with your own stuff. But one thing that I have had to really lean into is people do come to me when they're very emotional, but that's not what we deal with, if you see what I mean. Like we stick to the, okay, well, what we're gonna do? What do you want to do? Like,
very pragmatic, very
very
practical.
pragmatic approach. But when we talked about in the Success Codex one, if you haven't seen it, we did a couple of bits about Sarah's Success Codex, and it has in there the leadership gateway is actually our midheaven, which is not in your human design chart. And so when I first got my Success Codex, this was a gate I had not seen before because and mine, so my leadership, and it was interesting. So I started working with Ankara and the Success Codex very early on, and some of the language has changed over the couple of years because we've refined the words. Like I've said before, there's a lot of pressure on one word to
Yeah,
describe something. And when I first saw it, the name that she had was oh, come on, I think it was emotional mastery for as the name of gate 36. And that showed up as my leadership. And I was like, emotion, me, leadership, no, thank you. No, no, no. And then I started reading it, and because she called it emotional mastery, I kind of was like, okay, so I can master my own emotions. I can deal with that. I'm like controlling them. I'm like, and it's almost, and then before it got released, she changed the language and she changed it to just emotion, and that my genius is emotion. But by the time she did that, it's almost like my system had kind of gone, okay, like I've adjusted to the emotional mastery piece. Now it's just so it's actually saying that part of my strength in my leadership is emotion.
Yeah.
But again, it all depends what you learn. Because if you hear the word emotion, you probably automatically default to, oh, emotional, crying, this, that, the
It's
other,
the extreme versions, isn't
the
it? Yeah.
extreme version. Whereas it's not saying that at all. Like, and just scrolling through to try and find it so I can read the actual description of what it
Well,
said.
because I have gate 36 as well,
Oh,
which,
okay.
but it's in my south node. So
Oh,
that's
so
obviously the energy I bring, like
that's
that
the
my
energy
cup.
you came here with that you have
Yeah.
already mastered. So you've already mastered emotion. So let me see, where are we?
Allegedly, let's just put
Legend.
that there.
So 36 emotion, the feeler. My key to success is honoring the full spectrum of my emotions and allowing them to move through me. How is this challenge serving my emotional mastery? Um, So, using emotion as a superpower to gain insights and wisdom. So, this is a newer gate for me. Um, and I'm kind of leaning into it. Um, and it says aligned Q self-aware, using your higher knowing during challenges, engulfed, identifying with and getting swallowed by drama, crisis, or negative emotions. And actually it's like, well, that's the thing I don't do. I don't get swallowed by the drama, the crisis, I do hold steady,
Mm.
through it all. So it's been a really interesting one there. Um
Well, you've
and
just reminded me of another client that I trained and mentor as a coach. And she is undefined in the emotional center and she's really, really empathic. And one of the things that she shared with me now, since going through her human design and how it impacts her showing up as a coach, when she prepares for a coaching session, she's got a little mini compact mirror that she puts in front of herself when she's conducting her client sessions to remind her to be a mirror and not a sponge.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think it's really interesting with the whole communication thing. Like I said, we have very different approaches
Mm,
to our communication, but it's all correct. And something else we talked about with the communication was how the centers can influence your
yeah.
communication. So we've got the obvious stuff, like the filter of your Mercury through the different lenses and different things, but whether you have a defined or undefined ajna can influence communication greatly, as well as the throat. Like the throat is obvious. Everybody talks about the throat and how the throat influences communication. But the other centers, so we've talked about emotion. If you do have an undefined emotional solar plexus, there is, because what I just mentioned about absorbing other people's emotion, it can lead to a tendency of avoiding difficult conversations, avoiding conflict,
Mm.
because you don't want that person to have an emotional outburst because you're going to absorb it and you're going to feel it. So a lot of people with undefined emotional solar plexus kind of avoid conflict and difficult conversations. So that can be at play. But the ajna, you actually mentioned that you think your undefined Ajna has a big impact on your communication.
Yeah, because when you're sort of undefined, so the Ajna is the mind center, right? It's literally when it's undefined, and I have no gates defined in it whatsoever.
Yours is actually open.
It's completely open, which means, like loosely translated, is that I am open-minded. I can see all perspectives. I can see the black, the white, the grey in the middle, and
And that's multiplied by your diplomacy
yes,
gates as well. So that's amplified. There's like a dual aspect there of the
yeah,
diplomacy gates we talked about on the other episode, which is that genius of seeing all sides and creating harmony. And then you got the open ajna, which is completely just empty, waiting to be open-minded.
yeah. And then obviously with the open throat as well, I think it can be. So I now see it as a gift, but I think in the past I found it really frustrating because other I feel the frustration from other people because
Okay.
they're like, and it's funny because I always used to attribute this to being a Libra, like indecisive.
Okay.
Like I can play devil's advocate, which means I'm not always necessarily committed to one way or the other, which can really piss people off.
It can annoy people. I, I have, so I also have undefined Ajna, and people with very strong convictions or very strong decisions, it does annoy them when I'm like, I can see both sides.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's not always what other people want to hear. Like sometimes people just want you to validate what they're saying.
Mm.
Um, but I think again, this is an evolution of communication because I do think it makes me a better coach because I'm not judgmental. People I can create a psychologically safe space where people can share their opinions and they know that they don't feel that mental pressure or the pressure of being right. They can share their ideas and thoughts without judgment. So they don't feel that. Whereas if I had a defined Ajna and I grew up again with two parents with defined Ajnas, um, I constantly felt like I was wrong. And that can be like that's, conditioning that we carry. So I've tried very consciously to embrace that openness, to create a safe space, um, so that they don't feel that judgment. Um, and I do think it's made me a better coach in that respect with what I'm doing now. I don't, I think it also made me a better teacher when I was teaching,
Okay.
um, because I know education has changed a lot. We've still got a long way to go. But I remember sitting at school where, like, if you didn't get something in a maths was always my nemesis. Because sometimes I don't always get things the first time, or I don't understand a particular way of doing something. So I want to try another way, line three. But the teaching style back in the 80s wasn't quite so amenable. And if you didn't get something, like, and my dad used to do this to me all the time, he'd just shout a bit louder. And it's like, I'm not deaf. I just don't understand what you're saying. Can you find a different way to explain it that I might be able to understand? So I think having that openness means that I can adapt.
Yeah,
And if,
but it's not fixed. It's not a fixed way of thinking, isn't it? Which is kind of what
yeah,
I mean. It's like there is no good, there is no bad in
no,
the chart. We talked in another episode a bit about like chart MB or like something, but sometimes I'm jealous of people with a defined Ajna because obviously when you are completely open-minded, the way it kind of talks about it, if you have that undefined, is you're never 100% certain because you're always open to options.
there's always that slight anxiety. They're like, oh shit, is there another
Like,
way of
is there
doing it?
something else I should be considering
Yeah.
here? Like, is there an angle I've missed? Whereas a defined Ajna comes with a lot of certainty once the decision has been made. So
Mm.
my dad has a defined Ajna. And so I kind of really understood the difference between he actually sometimes finds it quite hard to make decisions, right?
Mm.
So having a defined Ajna doesn't mean you make decisions
Decisive. Yeah,
easily.
no.
But once you have, and I can see it in him, once he has made a decision, it's done. Like he doesn't even consider it anymore. He doesn't even think about it anymore. It's like, why are you still talking? It's done.
Mm.
And that is very hard then to undo that decision, add more information to that decision, change that decision. And so sometimes I'm a little bit jealous of that because there's a lot of certainty
Yeah.
once an opinion or a something has been formalized, whereas I'm still like, "Oh, maybe I did see this thing over here. Do I need to do this again? But then again, the gift is there that I am, I never would have ended up on the human design success codex journey without my undefined Ajna,
Mm.
because I would have my dad formulated the opinion a very long time ago. Anything to do with this is absolute hogwash,
Yeah.
just ridiculous, not interested. And so if I hadn't gone, well, I don't know, I'm still going to have a look myself, I never would have ended up on this path. So my indecision and my undecidedness has opened up a lot of avenues.
Yeah.
So it's just, but again, it does make a difference with the communication. And I'll tell you something that I have noticed. I don't know if you've noticed this. There are a few people in my world that finish my sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed a correlation with they all have defined harshness. Almost like they've already decided or they think they know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And and I'm like, no. And well, no, see, so my dad does it, but he always seems to get it wrong.
Mm.
So then it creates this communication of a bit of conflict because I'm always having to go, no. And then I go, if you let me finish, what I was going to say was because
Yeah.
he's pre-decided about a situation. So he thinks he's got a, I don't know, I mean, it's not always, but if it's a topic where he's already thinks he knows what's happening,
Mm.
he will finish my sentence and interrupt me. And I am constantly, and so I then feel like we're sort of arguing. It's a bit of conflict because I'm constantly having to go, no.
Yeah.
No. Whereas I've got a friend who does it, but because it's like a friend and actually she will get it right. And so it kind of takes me a bit by surprise, but I sort of then go, yeah. And so, but I don't know if you've noticed that, but I find defined Arsenal people tend to try and finish my sentence or predict or jump ahead or they think they already know
Yeah.
what you're going to say.
And I have that a lot, particularly with my brother, where he's gone, I know what you're thinking. Like, actually, you don't. Go on, try me. You tell me what you think I'm thinking, and I'll tell you whether you're right or wrong. And that's kind of how I approach it now, because
Okay.
I think when I was a kid, I'd get so frustrated of like, because again, I think undefined throat, I would end up blurting things out in frustration because it's like you're trying to put words in my mouth that are just not actually like you think I know, you think you know how I'm thinking and how I'm feeling, where actually you're not, but you're not allowing me the space to be able to communicate it.
Yeah. And so when we are talking about communication, communication is not a one-way thing.
No.
We're always communicating with somebody else.
Mm.
So like understanding my dad's human design and how he communicates. So our strategy, our authority, it influences how we communicate. Like he's a self-projected projector, so he needs to talk things out and kind of go through things. I have an emotional authority, so my emotional wave is going to impact my communication and how I feel about something, or do I need to wait and is the best time? And once you start to understand, like it's going to be a lot harder to communicate with someone who's very fixed in their mindset or something they've concretely decided on than trying to have a conversation with someone who maybe is more. Once you start to, that's why I just love human design because it's this information that can just make things run so much more
Yeah,
smoothly.
I mean, it's definitely improved my communication with my husband actually, as you were talking, because when we understood each other better, we can give each other the space and the time that we need in order to express and communicate. So he's undefined emotionally, I'm defined. So I sometimes am quite emotional in my communication, or I kind of go inwards and keep it in. But because he's an empath, he kind of feels the emotion, but doesn't necessarily know, because I don't have a connection to the throat. He will then, with his defined crown and ajna, try to predict what he thinks or the emotion is
It
about.
will come to a conclusion. It will actually fix. So it will get the data, take in the data through this part of the system, and
Yeah.
then this part of the system is looking for a concrete,
Mm.
will come to a conclusion and
Yeah.
then not look for it. Go, oh, well, it must be that.
Yeah.
Then she must be annoyed because I forgot to put the milk in the
And he
fridge.
makes up stories that
Yeah.
he that make sense to him without actually coming to me and asking. This is how it used to be. But the other thing is as well, because I've got that defined G center, I need to sound the G center is like a sounding board type energy. Like sometimes I just need to verbally download and blah. And he again, defined crown and defined ajna, is automatically looking for the solution, like he needs to fix something. I'm like, no, I'm just kind of literally getting it off my chest. I'm processing. I need to hear myself saying it so that I know what I'm kind of thinking or feeling. I don't need you to provide a solution. And I think when we realized that or recognized what was going on there, so I used to, when I first started my business, this is a perfect example, right? Um, I used to write things, write posts and say, or write a blog post or something like that and say, oh, can you have a quick look over that then? And he'd start picking it apart and like critically evaluating it effectively. I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted you to do. And he's like, well, what did you want me to do? You asked me to check it over. I'm like, it was more of a vibe check rather than a grammar and sentence construction check. But that's the fixed um idea that he'd had, and we hadn't actually discussed what I needed from him. So we've learned to be a bit clearer about what, like when I'm sharing something, what do I actually need? If I just need you to listen, just listen. So I've become clearer in how to express what my needs are. And if I haven't expressed it, he is better at going, what do you need from me? Rather than projecting it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I think we said at the beginning, when people look at the human design chart, they start initially as is, the best place to start looking at the gates and the throat. And is it defined as undefined? But there are so many other places in the chart that do actually impact our communication and how it comes across and how we connect with others. And, communication is not this one-way street. So we do, I would invite you to go and have a look at all the different places in your chart. Have a look at your throat, have a look at your gates. Um, Part of our journeys has been to stop questioning ourselves with how we use our voices, how we do things, um, which is an amazing kind of thing to get rid of that self-doubt. Trusting the timing and the communication depending on what's happening with your chart, and also then looking at other spaces where there's a potential of how you actually communicate with others, that comes across. Thank you, Sarah. I love
I
that.
love this. It's
I
been
love our chats. So we'll be back again soon with more unscripted, random ramblings about human design. If you want to find us, all the details will be below, and we'll see you again soon.